This is the de Havilland Vampire T.11. WZ507 was manufactured by the de Havilland Aircraft Company at Christchurch in 1952 and delivered to the RAF in 1953. WZ507 became the first ex-RAF jet fighter to be put onto the UK civilian register as Golf Victor Tango India India in 1980. I met up with Mark Hooton, who flies the Vampire, and Phil Arnold, who is part of the ground crew, at Cotswold Airport. They showed me around this iconic aircraft and explained how it operates. I started learning to fly in 2013 and it took me 7.5 years to get my PPL licence due to a debilitating fear of flying. I created this channel to show some of my training and what's next for my flying hobby and to prove that it is possible to overcome a phobia. Welcome to the Phobic Flyer YouTube channel.
So the aircraft's probably in a hangar or undercover. It's not in its current position all opened up. So we would come to the aircraft, open up the nose, check that the battery's disconnected first before we do anything else, because you don't really want to jump into an aircraft, turn the battery on and find someone has left the undercarriage lever up and you have the aircraft settle on its belly. It looks rather silly. So we'll start with the battery. It's off, disconnected. Next thing is we're going to find this wonderful tool. You cannot go anywhere with a Vampire without this tool. To open up the panels, and these parts are to open the fuel tanks. Yep, two different sizes for the fuel tanks. One size for the fuselage and the smaller one for the wing tanks. Next step, we'll check the oil. The oil is checked underneath the fuselage. We get to the engine sump by taking this panel, these off, dropping the panel down, and here we can see the engine. So here is the sump, here is the hydraulic pump, the engine here, these go to the fuel nozzles. These provide the fuel to each combustion chamber. 1, 2, 3, all the way around, there's 14 of them. Check the oil, undo the dipstick.
So it's almost like a car in that respect.
And we pull it out there, and it's down at -2. So it's used 1 pint of oil for the last flight. I'll put that back. Screw it back in. So you can see how convenient it is and how easy it is to check the oil.
Very much so.
We check for leaks, of course, any fluid leaks, oil, hydraulic, or fuel, of course. The high energy ignition units that are used to start the engine are up here. So when you hear the engine being turned over to start it, you'll hear a tick, tick, tick. That's the spark across the spark plug, but it's provided by, the energy is provided by these ignition units. And there's two of them, one there and one behind. So that's checking the oil. If we wanted to top the oil up, we'd have to open up the cowl at the top and find a funnel and fill it from above. So you've got to get up on the wing to do that. We'll do that next. Once the panel's closed up, we can connect up the ground power here. It's fairly important that it's not too high a power. It's a 24 volt, not 28 volts, it's specifically 24 volts. And that's if it's too much power that goes to the starter motor crashes against the engine and will damage the engine. So
it's electric start, not air start?
It's an electric start, just like a Cessna 172 or Piper Cherokee. Okay, so that's checking the oil. Thing is topping up the oil sump. So we'll climb up onto the wing. Phil will pass the special de Havilland tool. Thank you very much. Whoops. Pass that back. I'll try not to slip off the wing of the aircraft. There's a stay here. Prop it up. So again, there's no leaks. Fuel nozzles that run down to the injectors here. Fuel nozzles. This is the tacho at the top. So next to the tacho is the oil filler. So we'll put a funnel in there, please. Thank you. And making sure it's all.
And what type of oil is this?
It's a synthetic oil developed for the high temperatures that the gas turbines produced. So the oils in your average 1930s aeroplane, of course we didn't have synthetic oil, we ran on mineral oils.
Yeah.
And as the temperatures went up, to protect the metal, protect the engines, they developed synthetic oils.
And it's very cheap as well, isn't it?
Very, very cheap. So what is it, about 40 pounds for this can.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Anything with the word aviation or marine on it, and especially jet, I bet you can just like times it by 10.
You can.
Yeah. So when the engine was originally developed in late 41, 42, of course they didn't have this oil. No. And the engines were all used seals and gaskets that were suitable for the mineral oil.
Yeah.
And then as the engine developed and they realised they needed higher temperature lubricants, they developed this synthetic oil. The synthetic oil would destroy the natural rubber gaskets and seals and things, so they had to strip down all the early engines and replace all the seals so that you could use this modern synthetic oil. Wow. So that's one point in. So that's all back as it should. If I pass that to Phil. Thanks, Phil. And again, we check that the air intakes are attached correctly. There aren't any leaks. Really, it's no different to any other aircraft. You know, you're looking for wires in the wrong place, things in the wrong place, things that have worked themselves loose. So the cables, pipes, you're looking for wear or something rubbing where it should not.
Yeah.
Well, that's all good. So we'll close that back up. So that's the oil checked and topped up. Have the tool again, please, Phil.
Yep, there you go.
Thank you.
And the surface of the aircraft is as shiny and as slippery as it looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful aircraft.
It's like a giant Airfix kit.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And was this built to replace the Spitfire
They were,
as such, or
the
not
Vampires
specific?
were interceptors.
Yeah.
So the de Havilland Company built the wooden bomber, the Mosquito bomber.
Yeah.
And but the guys really wanted to produce a fighter, an interceptor. During the Battle of Britain, there'd been German bombers flying over their factories, dropping bombs, and the engineers wanted a fighter, something better than a Spitfire.
Yeah, and faster.
A lot faster.
Yeah.
Outclimb. They wanted this. The Air Ministry though wanted another bomber, so they wanted a bigger Mosquito.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that idea wouldn't have worked because the power plant wasn't available, and a bigger Mosquito just meant a slower Mosquito. They called the Mosquito the day bomber, and the plan was to call the bigger one the night bomber. And but at the same time, the guys were looking at how would they build a new interceptor, and Frank Halford, the chief engineer, had been given information from the Air Ministry regarding the Whittle engines.
Yeah.
He looked at it and thought, well, I can do a better job than that. I'll simplify the engine, let the air flow straight through without any turns, made it a lot easier to build and a more efficient engine.
Wow.
And within no time at all, they designed and built the Goblin engine. Initially it was called the Halford's H1 engine, and at a later date it was given the name Goblin. And it ran throughout 1942 quite happily. So it really is a World War II engine, you know.
When did the Vampire first fly?
So the engine flew,
Yeah.
the engine powered the first Gloucester Meteors.
Oh, of course it did, yes.
So the Meteor flew in March 43.
Yes.
So engine, they had these engines sitting there,
Yeah.
but de Havilland was busy manufacturing Mosquitoes. So there was no fighter available. They developed the Mosquito into fighter bombers, night fighters and all that sort of thing as well at the same time. So the de Havilland Company and the engineers were very busy. And but they eventually got the airframe completed, and the first Vampire flew in September 43. But the engine powered the very first, what became the P-80, F-80 Shooting Star.
Yeah.
So it was a Goblin engine that powered that, the Meteor and the Vampire. And that engine led on to the Ghost, and that powered the first Comet, the first civil jet airliner.
Another beautiful aircraft.
Another beautiful aircraft indeed.
And the Venom.
And the Venom, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So like the Mosquito, this is a wooden fuselage. As you can see, there's no rivets here. So it's it's built in two halves, birch and balsa, like two canoes, and then they're glued and sewn together, and it's then covered with this fabric. And the fabric's cotton.
It looks like metal, doesn't it?
It does, but where's the rivets?
There's none.
There's no rivets. That's what it's just an aeroplane.
And that must have a big impact on its aerodynamics as well. It's very smooth, isn't it? It's like flowing. Everything's flowing. There's
Fairly efficient.
Yeah.
Yes. The air intake wasn't brilliant to start off with. It needed redesigning, but they didn't have the same computer technology that we've got today.
Yeah.
So, But what a brilliant job for 1943.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to take your hat off to them, haven't you?
Definitely. Tell me about the armaments on this.
Well, as Mark said, it was designed as an interceptor. During the Second World War, when we started, all the Spitfires were armed with 303 rifle ammunition, basically. And later on then we came across 20mm cannon ammunition, which meant we could have a variety of rounds going in. So they're 20mm in diameter, and we can have armour-piercing rounds, explosive, tracers. And if you look underneath there, you'll see the 4 gun ports in there. And so they go right back into the aircraft where the breeches and the ammunition trays are.
Massive.
Absolutely massive. And they hold cannon shells in there about this long, and they're about this diameter, and they just destroy anything. You'd only have to have 2 or 3 hits. And again, bearing in mind you've got 4 all going away there, it was just devastating on a...
How many of those, I suppose you wouldn't call them bullets, what would you call them? Or would...
Well, they're cannon shells.
Cannon shells, that's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
How many of those would you typically carry on a mission?
Oh, about 1,000 on each gun.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of weight there.
That must weigh a considerable amount.
Heck of a lot. And again, the rate of fire was colossal, so you only got a few seconds burst, so you did have to make sure you positioned yourself properly.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Another thing about the Vampire, people go on about the German jets, how they had an axial flow engine in which was far more advanced than the centrifugal one on this one. And what a lot of people don't know is Frank Whittle was well aware of an axial flow turbine. You know, it was existing technology he knew about, but he realised that the technology we'd got in the metallurgy, we hadn't got the metals that could withstand that temperature at that particular time. Yeah. And the Germans were even a worse position because they hadn't got access even to the metals. We did,
really? But
it was just a lot more development. Yeah. So whereas the German jet engine had only got a lifespan of 10 hours flying and then it was scrapped, yeah. These things would fly for over 100 hours and then just maintenance. Yeah. And that was the key difference.
And how long would typical maintenance sort of window last once the aircraft was down and it reached its 100 hours? How long would it be offline for?
About a 40-hour maintenance program.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, it could be done shorter than that,
yeah.
But again, that was just to make sure everything was checked, rebuilt, and again, under wartime conditions, I mean, everything was just go, go, go. Yeah.
It looks like a big dolphin or a big whale, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With the mouth open, it's just...
Oh, with the mouth open, yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah. But when you consider, that this has only got 1 jet engine, and the Meteor had to have 2, yeah. And this has got performance equal to, and if not greater than the Meteor. It's mad. So again, with 1 engine, you've got much more manoeuvrability. Yeah. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I'm very proud to, work with Mark on keeping this thing flying.
Can you fly it now for 100 hours, or would it be less now it's older, or does it?
Well, every different part on the aircraft has got a life on it.
Okay.
And according to what the part is, sometimes when it reaches that life, that's it, it's scrap. Yeah. Other times then it'll have to be serviced and checked. Yeah. But every year the whole aircraft goes in for its annual, like an MOT check.
Is that the ARC or similar to an ARC?
Yeah, it's runs under a permit to fly.
Okay. Yeah.
And the engineers there, they look at everything. Yeah. They are so particular. Yeah. So when you get in it, when these guys have gone over it, because we've seen them do it, yeah. You just got the utmost confidence that it's going to work. Yeah, definitely.
So how many of these aircraft were built then, Mark?
4,000 Vampires built. Yeah.
And what period was that over, roughly?
They were built under licence in Australia, New Zealand. So it's quite interesting that this aircraft, designed in the UK, became a multi-role combat aircraft that was sold immediately after the Second World War to many other nations, and they would build them under licence and pay a fee to the UK for doing so. So it was a great export success for the country, and we don't do that anymore. We haven't done that sort of thing. No. The Buccaneer was the last British bomber designed purely in the UK.
I mean, the UK was just it was so ahead of things with aviation, wasn't it, back in that sort of day? Look at the Comet. I mean,
Comet, yeah.
Yeah, Concorde.
Concorde.
You know.
All the early jets, be they Hawker Hunters, Supermarine Swift, they were all fantastic. They were really brilliant. You know, great to see, great to hear. The noise, inspired by the noise and the look of them. You know, the interesting shapes. You don't see so many interesting shapes now. You know, if you see an airliner, it's very hard to. What's the difference between they do an A320, a 737.
Do you still smile when you fly this? Do you still think, I cannot believe I'm actually doing this?
When everything's going right in it, yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. When you're checking something, or it can be hard work as well. It's not just jump in and go. It may look that way, but there is a lot to it to get it to flow smoothly. Yeah. You know, to take it to an air show, to take it just for a short flight. Today, you need something like 2 hours to get it ready, an hour after you've flown it to finish putting it away. So there's a lot goes into it. Although it is a lot of fun, yes.
Definitely. It's got such a distinctive sound, doesn't it? Because, you know, when I got out of my car earlier, I just heard you before I saw you, and then I saw everyone just looking up. And they were sort of in awe of it. And you flew, you wouldn't know, but you flew over my house about, I can't remember, a few weeks ago. And I heard you before I saw you. And as soon as I heard the noise, I just knew it was your aircraft. I knew it was the Vampire.
A very distinctive sound.
Beautiful sound.
From the impeller, the compressor section makes that very
Whereabouts is that
sound.
on there?
So it's the very first part that you can see when you look inside the air intake.
Yeah.
And this engine runs at around 10,600 RPM max.
Very fast.
And it's a lot quicker than, say, a piston engine that would be running at, say, a Merlin at 2,400 RPM. Yeah. This is 4 times the speed. And the Derwent, the competitor, if you like, ran at 14,000 RPM. And it seems fairly quick, but it's fairly slow in comparison to some of the modern gas turbines, which can be, some of them are 80,000 RPM, aren't they? So
all I can say to people, and it's probably politically incorrect, but I can honestly tell you, it's the most fun I've had with my clothes on.
That's fine to say that, mate. That's fine, Phil.
It is awesome.
And the gear, the landing gear, is that was that developed specially, or was that just
No, it's pretty well
repurposed?
standard. The braking system on them is typical 1940s, 30s, 40s. It's pneumatic. It's air powered. So the engine drives a little pump. The pump fills up a cylinder, and we normally try and pre-charge this cylinder before we go flying. But the engine will, using this very small pump, fill the cylinder if you need to. The cylinder then supplies air to the brakes, the canopy opening system, and the seal that goes around the canopy.
It's pneumatic, is it?
So the aircraft is actually pressurised.
Is it?
And it would also be very noisy if there was a gap here. So this little rubber boot, it's like a bicycle inner tube.
Yeah.
It's attached to the canopy here, and when you lower the canopy, you inflate it. And that little tube inflates all the way around the canopy and seals the canopy, so it reduces the noise and it makes it and helps pressurise the aircraft. That's amazing. So those are the 3 pneumatic systems. Because the brakes are operated by a single lever, when you apply this lever, it puts pressure to both main wheels. When you want to turn to, say, the right, you would push the rudder pedal to the right, and it would keep the brake on the right-hand side, but release the brake on the left-hand side, and the aircraft will then pivot around. That's great. Dry runways, no problems. On a wet runway, in a crosswind, it becomes a little bit more interesting. One, there is no anti-skid system on these wheels. You squeeze the handle and you have to be careful not to lock the wheels up. It's very easy to do. The later aircraft did have anti-skid, but the RAF never fitted anti-skid units to their Vampires. So on a wet runway, in a crosswind, and you've got full rudder in, you're then relying on one wheel to brake the entire aircraft, and it will quite often double the amount of runway required to stop. So we'd normally be looking for a dry runway of 1,000 metres minimum for this aircraft. If it's wet and a crosswind, we might need 2,000 metres, and that's a lot of runway today. There aren't many places that we can use. Obviously the big airports, Heathrow, Manchester, Luton, but if, that would really upset people if we were to come in there and
if you wanted to pay the landing fee as well.
Ah, yes, the landing fees, that would be another thing.
So there is no steer. Is the nose wheel steerable at all then?
It's like an AA5.
Okay.
So when you, it's a fully cast ring nose wheel. So when you brake, let's say if you were to operate the right wheel brake, the nose would just pivot around, that would just spin around, just like a Tesco shopping trolley. Other supermarkets are available. But yeah, like an AA5. So if you're used to an AA5, you soon get used to this.
And a Hawk T1 as well, I believe, is similar. It's the same.
Yes, a lot of aircraft did have fully cast ring systems. Yeah. But it does have limits, as I say, on a wet runway and in a strong crosswind.
So have you ever had to divert because of that?
I've had to either delay flights or cancel flights because of that, because it was just too windy. You know, the aeroplane will quite happily take the crosswind, but is the runway long enough? And we don't really want to push the brakes there because it's too expensive. So it's easier just to say, well, let's fly another day.
And I noticed the tyre is quite unique. Well, for me it is anyway, that it's got almost like one big tread round the middle and two bits on the outside.
Like the de Havilland Dove as well, yes. Made at the same time.
Is this ladder typical of what would have been used back in the day when this was first built, or not?
It's very similar. This ladder is quite simple, just hooks over here. But the original de Havilland ladder was a very lightweight thing and telescopic. So you could hide it away in the ammo bay. And it hooked on one hook over the sill and one pin into a hole in the side here, and two more holes down here.
Okay.
As I say, it was also telescopic, so it was lovely. But just to keep the fuselage a little bit cleaner, this doesn't have that hole in.
And what is the 74 reference on the side?
It's nothing. It just looks nice, doesn't it? If you want to change it, we can.
No, it's fine. 74 is a good number.
It's all just done because it looks nice.
And the WZ507, is that the original registration?
That's its original RAF registration, yes. Yeah. And the civil registration that it now carries is Victor Tango India, Vampire T.11.
And that's not by accident.
No. Well, let's go up and have a look.
Yeah, cool.
So if I jump up, hand on top of the ejection seat, left hand on the window frame, hop in, stand on the seat, and then with your hands on the window frame, you can lower yourself down into the seat, being careful of the ejection seat handles. Starting with your left hand, if you put your left hand down to the side, right back there, that's where we'll start. So there is oxygen and a wheel for the pressurisation demisting heat control.
Yeah.
If you then move your left hand forward,
Yeah.
you'll come to a round red, a lever with a round red sort of knob on it.
Yeah.
No, further down, further down.
Oh, there.
No,
No.
down there.
Not that one now.
Keep coming down.
Oh, down there, yes.
Yep, that's your undercarriage.
Oh, wow.
Coming inboard slightly and up, you'll find a yellow knob with a pin through it,
Yes,
or two.
I can see that.
It's sticking out either side.
Yeah.
That's the flap lever.
Okay.
Isn't it convenient to
Yeah.
locate these things?
This is all just on the one side.
This is all on the one side. Yep.
Okay.
Your left hand continues up to that red one that you just had. That is the air brake, speed brake. That's in the closed position at the moment. If you move your left hand forward a little bit, that is the high pressure fuel cock. You'd push that forward to start the engine.
Okay.
Your thumb can operate the button in the centre of that knob, and that's the high energy ignition unit.
Yeah.
If you want it in flight, if it should flame out, you can hit that and it'll hopefully start up again. If your left hand then comes up, onto there, that's the throttle.
Oh, wow.
With the thumb, you
Yeah.
can operate the push to talk.
Okay.
That's for your push to talk for the radio. The twist on it is for the gun sight. So if you twist that, that controls the sight there. Yep. Okay. And then coming forward, if you push the throttle all the way forward.
Shall I push it?
Yeah, go on.
You've got
Duplicated throttle.
That didn't sound good.
And now your left hand is just above the low pressure fuel cock.
Go on.
Left hand continue forward from that throttle.
Yeah.
If you had your hand on the throttle, put your hand back on the throttle, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Immediately forward of your left hand now are three black little round knobs. No, put your hand back on the throttle, move your hand forward, and it will bump into these little black.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So immediately forward.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Three,
And
4.
they're the rheostats for the cockpit lighting.
Okay.
Yep.
Rheostat, that's a word I haven't heard for a while. Potentiometer.
If your left hand is back on the throttle,
Yeah.
and just to the right of the rheostats is a black and yellow striped switch. That's your undercarriage override switch, so you can retract the gear whilst you're on the ground should your
Okay.
brakes fail.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yep. So it bypasses the micro switches. Next to the rheostats, you've got the engine EGT, exhaust gas temperature,
Yeah.
and the engine RPM. So it's got hundreds and thousands, hundreds indicated by the long arm, and the short hand indicates thousands. So it goes around, that would be 500, and eventually you'll go round and round to 10,600. So you can see it's got to go all the way around to that a couple of times there. Clocks, very useful for navigation and watching the fuel consumption, which is right next to the clock.
Yeah.
Altimeter, a bit strange, like the tacho, it goes around not just
and
once.
Got another identifier.
It's got three hands. It's very easy for people to confuse and miss that tens of thousands. And they think they're at 15,000 or 25,000. In fact, they're at 5,000 and bang into a hill. So these, it's the original altimeter, but it does have limitations.
Okay.
Airspeed indicator, again, a bit strange. It goes around 300, 350 knots, and then you read on the inside.
Okay.
Then we've got two AC operated instruments. These flight instruments, artificial horizon and compass. So you've got a standby magnetic compass here, but you've also got this compass here.
That's like the one in my PA-28. Oh, not my PA-28, but the one I fly. It's very similar,
That one is, yes.
Yeah.
Underneath there, we've got the Mark meter. If you are pressurised, this is your cabin altitude. So you could, if you're at 40,000 feet on here, you could have 20,000 feet cabin altitude.
Yeah.
This is your undercarriage indication. you can, you've got 2 sets of light bulbs. If a light bulb fails, you can just flick them over.
Oh.
Yeah, and it puts the current through another set.
3 greens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've got day, night, and 2 positions.
Cool.
If you lose a light bulb. If the generator comes offline, we've got that. If you've got a engine fire, fire indication there. Test switch for the light bulb there. The DC powered turn and slip. Another clock. These are, as I say, clock's very important in this aeroplane for navigation and monitoring the fuel consumption.
I love the smell. It's got that similar smell that the Vulcan cockpit had in it.
Quite likely,
Oh,
yes. Yeah. And over here, this is all the armament panel. Engine starting, so you turn on your engine start master and the boost pump. The low fuel pressure lights here, that would go out. You lift up this, hold that in for 3 seconds, and it should then start an automatic sequence, and you've got about 35 to 40 seconds to get the engine running.
Okay.
When the engine's running, you can turn off the start master, turn on your flight instruments, pitot heat and nav lights, and you just push the throttle forward and off you go. There are once the engine's running, there's no magneto to check, no mixture to do anything with. So if you've set yourself up and you've thought about your navigation, off you go. As soon as the engine's running, chocks away and go full power. So
it's not very often I'm going to see one of those in an aircraft. And why isn't it called a machometer? That sounds so much more funky than a Mach meter. Sorry.
I don't know why they called it a Mach meter. I have no idea.
That's fine.
No idea. When you find out, let me know.
I will. Machometer just sounds so much more cool, doesn't it? And this is this servo assisted?
So this is the brakes. So don't squeeze them, please, because this is our air pressure indicated here on that needle that's pointing straight up.
Yeah.
And it's showing at about 250, 300 psi.
Yeah.
And when you squeeze that, you'll put the pressure to each main wheel, and that's indicated by these 2 needles down here.
Yeah.
The pressure goes through, the air is fed through a pressure reduction valve, and so you only get about 100 psi max to the main wheels.
Do you need to charge that up as well, in addition to what
it's one bottle that you charge. Yeah.
Cool.
To turn the battery on, that's this switch here. You can, in fact, if you give it a try, you'll see.
Do you pull it or turn it?
Just pull it. As you can see, and if you push it back in, you can see everything's pretty solid, isn't it? It's not like little tinny Cessnas. No. Everything's pretty solid about this thing. So the switches. The other thing that you won't find on a Cessna is if you lift these 2 safety catches up, you'll drop down the cannon trigger. That trigger is for the cannons and the rockets. You can squeeze that because everyone wants to.
And what's this do?
Right, so if you look here, you can push this button at any time you want, and that's just for the camera that's in the nose.
Oh.
If you fire a gun, though, they want to record what you've hit.
Oh.
Was it an enemy aircraft, enemy position, or whatever? So you'll get a nice picture, and hopefully it's not one of your mates. No. So you can select guns or rockets here. Rocket projectiles is RP, and then that trigger will operate either the guns or rockets. This one here operates your bombs.
So what sort of bombs would it have had then?
2 big bombs that you hang under the wings to blow.
Yeah. I didn't realise it had bombs as well.
Yeah, you could carry bombs, rockets, combinations.
Amazing. Such a versatile aircraft.
Fuel tanks. Because of the limited fuel, really the most useful thing is in this aircraft is more fuel.
Yes.
And they also fitted in the. Once you've done that, you can squeeze that back in. It'll lock as well. Once you put the safety catch down.
Oh, is it?
Just
it?
Yeah, no.
Oh well.
The trigger will just come back in.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. In the Bush War, Rhodesian Bush War, they also carried little bomblets inside the fuel tank. So cut a compartment inside the fuel tank. So when you flew over, you could release these like darts into the bush. Very effective, very cheap to make.
Yeah.
And you fly in at 350 knots, and they just cut through anything.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A lot cheaper than firing cannons. If you did want the cannons, rockets, you could select how they were fused by these switches over here. All right. It's simple as that, really, isn't it?
Is there any? Is this how it would feel when you're flying it, or is there any servo or anything like that?
It's like a Spitfire. It's totally manual.
It's manual, which is better, really, because there's less to go wrong, isn't there?
Well, it's also can be more difficult as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and control cables weigh, so have a certain weight.
Yeah, of course. Wow. Never thought I'd say that.
To release your drop tanks, you've got a lever down here, and you've also got emergency hydraulic accumulator.
Yeah.
If the engine-driven pump fails and you want to operate your hydraulics, which operate the undercarriage and flaps, you pull this little lever out here, pump that, and that's your manual pump.
That's brilliant, though, isn't it? Simple and it works.
Yes, about 80 pumps, and you'll get the undercarriage down.
But you've got if it fails, you've got contingency, haven't you?
There is.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. That's very important with any aircraft, of course. You know, you've got to have a alternate means of controlling undercarriage and flap.
Does this have ADS-B in it, your Garmin?
No, it's just a Mode C.
Mode C.
Yeah. So the only things we've got the gun sights would fit in here and in here, and so we've got a very modern GPS here.
Yeah.
20 years old. Very modern transponder that's probably 10 years old.
Yeah.
And the radio, 833 compliant. Which is about, I don't know, 3 years old, 2-3 years old.
Yeah, nice.
And a backup, artificial horizon. And that's really most of it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, no problems.
No, I can imagine.
Did you see it when we had the engine out?
No. What are these little pod things at the back?
Aerodynamics.
Okay.
The weights stop it fluttering.
Oh, is that the
Anti-flutter.
anti-balance tab?
Yeah,
Type
mass
thing?
balance.
Yeah. You've got some good luck as well, I see, on the back.
Is that what it is?
So if anybody wants to have a fly in this amazing aircraft, then if you go to www.vampirepreservation.org.uk. That's amazing.
Oh, anyone that's got a PPL or above and fancies flying in the aircraft, yeah, look us up. More than happy to teach people how to fly it, experience the early jets.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun.
I can imagine it's an unbelievable experience as well.
I think you'd find it.
The trouble is, once you've been in a jet, everything else just seems a bit tame.
A PA-28 would become boring.
Oh, once you strap in, you put your helmet on, you with your oxygen mask, and then you hear that engine start to spool up. It is, most fun I've had with my clothes on.
Yeah.
And a brilliant pilot as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
That's awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you guys, and you guys taking the time and trouble to allow me to do this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Excellent. Thank you.